That's right. This is such a significant decision, as Jan Crawford was just talking about. The fact that these 3 liberal and 3 conservative justices came together and struck down something that is at the heart of President Trump's agenda, his tariffs. Now, one thing that stood out to me, I'm still reading through all of this, that is not really in this opinion, that people have been waiting for, is a discussion of refunds. What will happen with all of this money that has already been collected through the tariffs that President Trump imposed? And the only mention that I could even find of it was in a dissent from Justice Kavanaugh, where he brings up the fact that during the Supreme Court arguments, they acknowledged that these refunds would be a mess and that the court actually doesn't address it here. But a core part of this opinion, which was written by Chief Justice Roberts, is that he says that the power to tax is one that is a power of Congress, and that the president can't read into these words, regulate and importation, that are in IEEPA, the statute that he used to impose these tariffs, and assert that power to impose tariffs. He says no president has ever done this before, and especially not in this broad, sweeping way that President Trump has. And he actually wrote regarding those words that the president tried to use from the statute, he said those words cannot bear such weight. Well, dissents. There's many opinions in this over 100-page tariff opinion, and it shows the weight of this decision, the significance of this decision, Lindsay. But you're right; those are key aspects. The way that the president tried to read this particular law, and what the justices decided here is that the president has to point to clear congressional authorization, and they just say that that does not exist here. And having listened to the Supreme Court arguments, I'm also not surprised by this breakdown, even though it is unique for those justices to come together, because even those conservative justices were expressing a lot of concern, one about whether there is any distinction between the power to tax and the power to tariff, but also about what this means for presidential authority, for the separation of powers in the United States. If the president can essentially take a power that has been delegated to Congress and read it into a statute where they say that language just is not there.
The Constitution gives the federal government only the powers that it gives it, by which I mean that the federal government is a government that functions based on enumerated powers. You can't do anything unless the Constitution tells you that you can. It's not like states. States have general powers, something called sovereign powers or police powers. So what happens in this case, the majority of the court looks at the Constitution, they look at the statute, and they say to not just this president, but any president, no, you can't. You cannot use this statute to impose taxes.